Welcome. We're doing a deep dive today into something pretty staggering, a financial difference so big it really makes you question a lot of assumptions about saving money. We're looking at China's incredibly high savings rates, why they happen, the culture, the history, the practical stuff. It's like a shortcut to understanding a whole different financial world.
Yeah, and we have to start with the raw numbers because they're jarring. China's gross savings rate back in late 2021 was an amazing 45.9%.
Wow.
Think about that. For every $100 someone earns, nearly $46 gets saved. Now, compare that to the U.S., maybe 3.5%, 5% on a good day.
It's almost 10 times higher.
A factor of 10.
Exactly. A factor of 10.
And that gap feels even bigger when you think about how our systems are set up, right? Our sources point out that the U.S. economy is almost like built for spending now. It goes way back post-World War II, where spending was almost patriotic, keep the economy going. And we're just surrounded by it. Financing deals, sales all the time, that pressure to sort of keep up appearances. It really normalizes debt, doesn't it? Whereas in China, the cultural default is saving. So if we really want to get our heads around that 45.9%, we can't just look at budgeting apps.
No.
We need to dig into the cultural why, what does wealth even mean in society? And then the really practical how. How do they actually do it?
Okay, let's start with that cultural foundation then.
Yeah.
The source material suggests saving isn't just, a smart thing to do financially. It's tied up with honor, with success, taught really early on.
Oh, absolutely. It's woven right into childhood traditions. The lucky money kids get in those red envelopes for New Year's, birthdays.
Yeah.
They're taught sometimes pretty strictly, you save that money. You don't just blow it on, whatever.
Yeah.
And that respect for just having money, accumulating it, carries right into adulthood.
You even see it in holiday greetings. We might say Happy New Year. But the really common greeting for Chinese New Year is Gong Xi Fa Cai.
Which means?
Literally, hope you get rich. Puts wealth front and center, doesn't it?
It really does. And it means that people with significant savings, with money, they're generally seen as successful. Not just well off, but they've achieved something important in society. It links being diligent, honorable, and financially capable all together.
But there's more to it than just honor, right? There's a real need driving it, too, something different from here.
Definitely. If the culture is the why, the necessity comes from, the lack of a really comprehensive social safety net like people in many Western countries might expect.
Okay.
Our sources are clear there isn't really a direct equivalent to things like a 401k or an IRA system for retirement that covers everyone broadly.
You mentioned there is a pension system, but people are maybe a bit wary of it. Why is that?
Well, it seems to stem from a couple of big pressures. First, the population is aging fast. Fewer workers supporting more retirees. That puts a huge strain on whether the system can pay out down the road.
Okay, makes sense.
And second, you've got massive urbanization. Millions moving from rural areas where maybe there were traditional family supports into cities with less certain economic futures.
Yeah.
So people just don't fully trust that the state pension will be enough or even there when they retire.
So they basically conclude...
They conclude they have to save aggressively to cover their own future costs, healthcare, good education for their kids, and definitely their own retirement. It's like a self-funded insurance plan.
Got it. So honor plus necessity. That combo makes a lot of sense. Now let's pivot to something historical that really shook things up. The one-child policy. That changed the game demographically and financially for generations.
Oh, hugely.
Right.
That policy, running from the late 70s, early 80s, all the way to 2016. It created immense financial pressure, and it wasn't just a suggestion.
But it had teeth.
Big time. Fines for having a second child were massive. But here's the really critical part that often gets missed. If you couldn't or wouldn't pay that fine,
What happened?
that second child couldn't be registered in the official household system, the hukou.
And without registration.
No access to essential state services. We're talking basic stuff like subsidized healthcare and, crucially, public education.
Wow. So the financial incentive was enormous. Either comply strictly, or you had to save enough to basically fund that child's entire life outside the system.
Exactly. A huge driver for household savings right there.
And beyond just the number of children, the policy also fed into that skewed gender ratio we hear about. The sources mention figures like 122 boys born for every 100 girls at its peak. How did that demographic issue translate back into financial pressure?
Well, it created a really intense marriage market. There's a historical preference for male births anyway because boys traditionally carry on the family name, inherit property.
Right.
So when the ratio got that skewed, you suddenly had way more men competing for fewer available women.
Competition drives up the price, so to speak.
Pretty much. For a man to be seen as a desirable catch to stand out, he often needed to demonstrate financial security. That meant serious savings, maybe owning an apartment already, or showing clear potential to get there.
So another huge push towards saving, just driven by the marriage market dynamics.
Absolutely. So you had the fine and exclusion risk plus the marriage competition, plus the simple fact that most families only had one child to support.
Fewer mouths to feed.
Fewer mouths to feed. It all just compounded, creating this, oh well, historically tough but perfect storm for saving money.
Okay, so we've got the cultural why, the historical drivers. Now, let's get practical. How do people actually maintain a 45.9% savings rate day in, day out? What's the method?
The sources really zero in on one core practice: meticulous accounting, tracking every single dollar. It's not passive saving, it's active, rigorous, often called zero-based budgeting, or ZBB.
Zero-based budgeting. Okay, break that down.
ZBB is all about discipline, the basic rule. You give every single cent of your monthly income a specific job. So income minus expenses equals exactly zero at month's end. If you earn, say, $5,000, you allocate all $5,000 until there's nothing left unassigned.
And the key is what counts as an expense, right? It's not just the usual bill.
That's the crucial difference. Expenses absolutely include your savings goals, your emergency fund contribution, money for a new car, investment contributions, paying down debt. Those are treated as fixed, non-negotiable expenses.
You pay your future self first, like it's rent.
Precisely. Savings aren't what's left over if you're lucky. They're a planned expense you pay right at the start.
Yeah.
And this takes, let's be honest, brutal honesty about where your money actually goes.
Yeah, you can't fudge the numbers.
Nope. For anyone listening who wants to try this, the source is really stress tracking your variable spending, food, gas, entertainment for maybe 3 months first. You need realistic averages before you can budget accurately with ZBB.
That whole concept feels pretty alien compared to how many people approach savings here, where it's often seen as optional, almost. That level of discipline, it must need some strong personal rules to back it up. Let's talk about those 4 key priorities the sources mentioned. Number 1 is interesting: actively avoiding status symbols.
Yes. There's a real cultural emphasis on staying humble, flying under the radar. Most people seem to actively avoid splashing out on luxury stuff just to show off. That expensive car, the designer bag, it's not seen as smart, it's seen as, well, wasteful.
So that money, the money not spent on status items, where does it typically go instead?
It gets redirected pretty quickly, often into things that build future value. Property is a big one, or maybe education funds for the kids, making the money work rather than just, impress the neighbors for 5 minutes.
Okay. Priority 2 really speaks to the commitment level, trying to live off a tiny slice of their income. This links back to that need for security we talked about.
It absolutely does. There was a really powerful story in our source material, a personal one, about a father who grew up dirt poor in Shanghai.
Okay.
Sometimes went to bed hungry, could only afford the cheapest, plainest pastry, man, too. That memory, that visceral feeling of lack, it drove his whole approach to money.
Wait, so his entire savings drive wasn't about retirement spreadsheets. It was about remembering being hungry, a physical need.
Exactly. When he started working, his goal, his ideal, was to try and live off just $1 for every $10 he earned, aiming for a 90% savings rate.
Wow, 90%.
Now, he couldn't always hit that extreme number, obviously, but the principle was locked in. Saving was about security, first and foremost, making absolutely sure he'd never face hunger again.
That's incredibly powerful for building wealth.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a potential downside to that level of discipline, the scarcity mindset. How do you get past that once you are secure?
Yeah, that's the big psychological jump, isn't it? When fear of poverty drives you, you naturally focus on what you don't have, what you have to restrict. It creates a scarcity mindset.
Right.
So if you adopt this kind of extreme saving, you have to be really conscious, as your wealth grows, to deliberately shift towards an abundance mindset. It means maybe consciously spending a small amount on things that aren't strictly necessary experiences, personal growth, maybe being a bit generous, things that reinforce the feeling of safety and capability, rather than constantly bracing for the next disaster.
That's a really important point for listeners. The saving builds the security, but you might need to consciously shift your thinking to actually feel secure. Okay, priority 3, needs versus wants, but with a twist amortizing value.
This is about being rationally frugal. The idea is, Be reasonable, yes, but it's okay to spend on a genuine need, especially if it impacts your long-term health or productivity, like getting a proper ergonomic chair instead of some flimsy thing. They'll spend on quality, but they want to maximize it.
And they justify buying a want by making sure it lasts and provides value over time. That amortizing idea is smart.
It totally reframes the purchase. You really want that nice $350 wallet. Okay, but calculate it. If you use it every day for 5 years, that's less than 20 cents a day. Suddenly it doesn't seem so extravagant. It's about maximizing the value per use over time. Smart choices, not just cheap ones.
Makes sense. And the last one, priority 4, feels simple but probably has a massive impact. Just staying and eating at home more.
Oh, it's huge. Because eating out, getting takeout, it just adds up incredibly fast. So eating out is almost always reserved for special occasions.
And that changes how people socialize too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Often, getting together with friends isn't about meeting at some pricey restaurant. It's hosting group dinners at home,
Oh, great.
which reinforces the habit of cooking, keeping food stocked, always having food at home, as they say, and that just slashes the overall food budget dramatically.
So putting it all together, that factor of 10 difference in savings,
Yeah.
it's clearly not just about being good with the spreadsheet. It's this powerful mix of things.
Correct. What we're seeing in China's saving success is this really potent, maybe unique blend. You've got the deep cultural conditioning linking wealth to honor, success, and absolute security. Then you add the strict practical methods like zero-based budgeting. And it's all been amplified by these significant historical events and structural pressures. It's where necessity met meticulous planning.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. We've seen how external things, big societal pressures, historical events like the one-child policy, the lack of a safety net, can really shape how whole populations behave financially. So when you think about your own saving and spending, how much of it is driven by what you genuinely need, maybe amortized need like we discussed, and how much might be influenced even subtly by that cultural pressure we mentioned right at the start, that pressure to keep up with the neighbors. It's definitely something worth mulling over as you think about your own financial path.
Gong Shifakai. Hope you get rich.